All right. 3-5 simple interest. And I know many of you are like, wait, we're in Unit 8. Yep, we're in Unit 8. As a department, we decided to move 3-5 here because we are teaching simple interest. And then on Monday, we will be teaching compound interest. So we thought it was best just to pull this out and put it right ahead of our compound interest section. Okay? That is why we're doing 3-5 here. So, simple interest. Simple interest has an equation. Okay. And it has no exponent, though. It just has an equation. Compound interest does have an exponent, which is why we do it with our exponential function unit. But this is the baby step before you get to compound interest. So let's talk about what our equation is. Okay, so you have your current amount or your ending amount equals your principal, that's your starting amount, that's your initial value, times the quantity of 1 plus your rate, remember that rate is a decimal, times time in years. Okay? So remember, R is a decimal, and you get it to be a decimal by dividing the percent by 100. That equals a decimal. And if you find the rate decimal and need to go back to the percent, you multiply the decimal times 100, and that gets you back to your percent, all right? Because you will probably be asked the percent, the rate percent, but you find your R as a decimal, so make sure you convert it back to the percent. Now, the other thing that you need to know, all right, that I realized after period 1 started doing their assignment, we need to know about interest, okay? So your interest, okay, your interest is the current amount minus the principal, okay? So interest is the current or final amount minus the principal, because you have several questions that are going to ask you just for the interest, or they're going to separate the principal and interest, or how much they borrowed and how much interest was paid, and you need to add them together to get to A, okay? A equals principal plus interest, all right? So you may have to do a little maneuvering with the numbers, okay? But remember, interest is the ending balance minus your principal. Your ending balance is principal plus interest, all right? So definitely need to know these. Know this. That's important information, and you are definitely going to need to know this for your assignment and for your EOC, so make sure you know that, all right? We'll have plenty of practice with it. All right, now we are going to be finding A, first A, all right? So we're going to use simple interest in the most basic bare bones forms, all right? And then we're going to first find A, and then we'll find a part of our equation, all right? So simple interest. Simple interest basically is in the banking world, all right? So Tanya, savings, opened a savings account at $2,100, so her principal is $2,100. The bank offers annual simple interest of 6%. So the rate is 0.06. Find the amount of Tanya's account after each year. Okay, so T equals 3 and T equals 8. So simple interest, you only earn interest on your initial principal over time, okay? So that's what makes it simple interest. You're simply earning interest on your initial investment over whatever span of time you are at. All right, So let's use our equation and fill in what we have for 3 years. So A equals, my P is 2,100 times 1 plus the rate is 0.06 times my T, which is 3. Okay. So we are going to work from the from the inner parentheses, and we're going to work our way out, okay, in our calculator. All right, now we're talking about money. Okay. So we're going to do our inner parentheses first, so 0.06 times 3. Take that answer, plus 1. Take that answer, multiply it by 2,100. That equals $24,078. Now what if it asks you just what the interest was? All right, so the interest is A minus P. So your interest that you earned over the course of those 3 years is $378. All right. So to find A, though, in the calculator, here's what you did. All right, the first thing we did was we took our rate and we multiplied it by time. Okay. Then we left that answer in the calculator and we added 1. Took that answer, added 1. Your third step, you kept that answer in your calculator and you multiplied it by your P. Okay, that gives you A. All right, so when you are showing your work, I want to see you have a filled in equation and see what A is. If you need to find your interest, all right, back out your initial principal from what A is and to get your interest. Be very mindful of what it is looking for, and if it's looking for A or if it's looking for interest only, all right? Now, let's check out to see how much Tanya earned after 8 years, all right? So the only thing that's changing is our T. So A equals 2,100 times the quantity of 1 plus, let me see, we are times T is 8 this time. Okay, A equals, well, again, we're going to take our R. We're going to take our R. We're going to multiply it by our T. We're going to take that answer and we're going to add 1. We're going to take that answer and we're going to multiply it by P. That gives me $3,108. All right, and the interest for 8 years is $1,008. Oh, need another 0 in there. All right. So that's as bare bones basic as simple interest gets. And now, you know, we can't just be bare bones basic. So we are going to take this knowledge and we're going to be given A and we're going to have to find a piece of it, okay? So we're going to write a simple interest equation, again, banking, okay? So Jackson opened a savings account with $5,000, so we know our P. Our principal is $5,000. The account earns 9.5% simple interest annually. So I know my rate is 0.095. Okay, after how many years will the balance of the account be $15,000? So what do we want our ending amount to be? We want it to be $15,000. Round to the nearest tenth. All right, round to the nearest tenth. which means we will be rounding in decimal world. Okay, so again, let's fill in what we have. All right, so this time we have A. Okay, so that's 15,000 equals my principal times the quantity of 1 plus my rate is 0.095 times t, and we don't know what t is. Okay, well, this time, instead of working from the innermost parentheses out, we're gonna work on actually eliminating parentheses, all right? So on the right, okay, because we have a right and a left side, on the right, outside of my parentheses, so multiplied by this whole thing inside parentheses, multiplied by it is 5,000. So to undo that multiplication, we can divide, okay, 5,000. Okay, so now that there's nothing outside this parentheses, I can drop them, and that'd be 1 plus the rate times time. All right, and then that is 3. Now again, we have parentheses, but what's outside the parentheses is plus 1. So, because that's a positive 1. So outside of our parentheses is plus 1, and we want to get rid of this parentheses. So what do we do to the plus 1? Well, we're going to subtract 1 to both sides. Now, once everything is away from the outside of this parentheses, so we have nothing else on this side outside of our parentheses, we now just have 0.095t on this side. And that gives me, 2. Well, now, 0.095 is multiplied by t, indicated by the fact they're right next to each other. So to undo the multiplication, we're going to divide. And t equals, well, I don't know, so let's see, 2 divided by 0.095. And we're rounding to the nearest tenth. Okay, so 21.1. 21.1 years. Now, let's talk about what we just did to find t in the calculator. Okay, here's what we just did. All right, we worked backwards. All right, so the first thing you do in your calculator is you take your A and you divide it by P. Then you take your answer and you subtract your 1. Then you take that answer and you divide it by the rate as a decimal. So that's what we did to find t. Now, if you wanted to find r, you would do the first 2 steps and then divide your answer by t, okay, because they're multiplied by each other. So if you have one and not the other, then you just divide by what you don't have, okay? So if we were trying to find r and we had t, we would take we'd get to step 3 and have an answer, we divide it by t, and that's how we'd find r. And if it asked for the percent, you'd take that r, multiply it by 100, and you get from the decimal to the percent. Okay. There's one other one you're going to see, okay? There's one other one you'll see. And what it is the problem, you aren't given the final amount, okay? You're given. And you also aren't given your principal. So there's 2 things you're not given. But here's the thing. We know that A equals P plus I. okay? So instead of having A on the left, you could have P plus I, because it equals the same thing. Oop. Instead of having A, you could have P plus I. There's one you're going to need to do this, okay? Because you aren't given a final amount. You also aren't given P. So when you get to that problem, your equation is going to be P plus I, okay? P is going to need to be a variable, okay, plus the interest, because that is A, okay, equals P, again, another variable, same variable, so you can leave them P or you can use X for both of these, okay, one on each side. And then 1 plus R times T. All right, so you'll be given R and T, and you'll be given your interest, okay? So when you fill it in, okay, let's say we're using P on each side. So what you do is you take your rate in decimal form, multiply it by your time, add it to 1. Okay, that's going to give you a number. And you're going to put the P behind it. So it's going to give you a number and P. And this side, you're going to also have a P plus I. So this side is actually going to win the variable. So you're going to subtract 1 whole P from both sides. And then you will subtract your interest. Okay? So fill in what you know. It's a multi-step equation. Several people, once they filled it in, took their time, step by step, they were able to get it. And if not, again, make sure you ask for help. All right, good luck.